The sky above Beijing turned black at 1447 local time. It wasn't clouds or smoke. It was metal. Thousands of ships, each one larger than an aircraft carrier, blocked out the sun. The temperature dropped 5 degrees in minutes as shadows fell across half the planet. Colonel Elena Vasquez stood in the Pentagon Command Center, watching screens fill with identical scenes from every continent. Tokyo, London, New York, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, all covered by the same darkness. Her hands gripped the edge of the desk until her knuckles turned white. "Ma'am, we're getting readings on ship composition," a young analyst said, his voice shaking. "The hull material, it's nothing we've ever seen. Our scanners can't penetrate it." The broadcast came 60 seconds later. Every screen on Earth, every phone, every device with a display showed the same image. A creature stood before them. Tall, impossibly thin, with elongated limbs and a narrow head. Its skin looked gray and smooth, like polished stone. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and every other language simultaneously. "People of Earth, we are the Gentari Empire. Your world now belongs to us. You have 72 hours to surrender all military forces and government authority. Resistance will be met with complete destruction. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. The world held its breath. Within the hour, every nation's military went to full alert. Fighter jets scrambled. Nuclear submarines surfaced for launch confirmation. Missile batteries came online across 6 continents. The Unified Earth Defense Initiative, formed 3 years ago after the asteroid scare, activated for the first time in a real crisis. "Fire at will," came the order from the Security Council. The sky lit up with contrails. Thousands of missiles streaked upward toward the alien fleet. Anti-ship weapons, nuclear warheads, experimental railgun projectiles, everything humanity had built to protect itself from threats beyond Earth. Vasquez watched the tactical display. Every missile reached its target. Every warhead detonated. For 10 seconds, the alien ships disappeared behind walls of fire and explosions that would have vaporized any human-made vessel. Then the smoke cleared. The ships hung in the sky, unmarked. Not a single scratch. Some kind of energy shield shimmered around each vessel, fading back to invisibility. "Jesus Christ," someone whispered behind her. The response came swiftly. Beams of purple light shot down from the fleet. The International Space Station exploded in silence, visible as a brief star that flared and died. The Chinese Tiangong Station followed. Then the orbital defense platforms, the early warning satellites, the GPS network, everything humanity had in space, turned to expanding clouds of debris. On the ground, the beams struck military bases. Cheyenne Mountain's blast doors, built to withstand nuclear strikes, melted like wax. NORAD went offline. Ramstein Air Base in Germany vanished in a purple flash. The Murmansk submarine pens collapsed into the sea. "They're taking out our ability to coordinate," Vasquez said. "This is a decapitation strike." 3 hours into the invasion, landing craft began descending. Huge vessels, each one carrying what intelligence estimated to be 1,000 soldiers. They landed in major cities first: New York, Shanghai, London, Moscow, Delhi. The doors opened, and the Gentari ground forces emerged. Vasquez watched the first ground combat footage from Central Park. The aliens wore sleek, powered armor that covered their thin bodies. They carried weapons that fired bolts of energy, melting through concrete and steel. Human forces opened fire with everything they had. The aliens advanced. But something was wrong. Vasquez leaned closer to the screen, replaying the footage. The aliens moved slowly, almost carefully. Their reaction times seemed sluggish. When one took a round from a .50 caliber machine gun, the impact knocked it completely off its feet, even though the bullet hadn't penetrated its armor. Pull up more combat footage, she ordered. Every engagement. I need to see how they move. For the next 2 hours, she watched battles from around the world. The pattern held. The Gentari were winning through superior firepower and numbers, but their soldiers moved like they were walking through water. They stumbled over rubble. They took long pauses between movements. When a soldier in Paris fell down a flight of stairs, it took 3 others to help it back up. "Get me the xenobiology team," Vasquez said, "and every physicist we still have contact with. I think I know why they're moving like that." The first day ended with a quarter of Earth's military destroyed. The aliens controlled 30 major cities. Millions were dead or fleeing. World leaders broadcast from bunkers, urging calm while fighter jets fell from the sky like burning rain. But in a command center deep underground, Elena Vasquez stared at a simple calculation on a whiteboard. She'd spent 6 years in the Marines, jumping out of planes, running with 60-pound packs, training in every environment Earth could throw at her. She knew what gravity did to a body, and she knew, watching those aliens struggle and stumble, that they'd never fought in it before. "We might have a chance," she said quietly, surprising herself with the words. Around her, exhausted officers looked up, desperate for any hope at all. A small one, but we might actually have a chance. The invasion had begun. Earth was losing badly. But the battle was far from over, and humanity's greatest ally was something so fundamental, so constant, that the aliens had never even considered it a weapon. Gravity itself was about to pick a side. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived at the underground command center 12 hours after Vasquez's call. She'd been in Seattle when the invasion started, barely escaping before the Gentari forces locked down the city. The drive to the Colorado bunker took her through scenes of devastation: burned vehicles, abandoned towns, highways choked with refugees. "Show me what you found," Chen said, dropping her bag on the conference table. Dark circles hung under her eyes, but they blazed with focus. Vasquez pulled up footage on the main screen. A Gentari soldier attempting to run across a street in Buenos Aires. Its stride looked wrong, each step too cautious, like someone crossing ice. "Watch this next part," Vasquez said. A grenade exploded nearby. The shockwave hit the alien, and it went flying backwards, slamming into a wall with force that should have been impossible from that distance. "They're light," Chen said immediately. "Much lighter than they should be for their size. That's a 7-foot creature in heavy armor, but it moves like it weighs maybe 150 pounds total." "Exactly." Vasquez pulled up more footage. Aliens struggling to climb stairs. One stumbling under the weight of its own weapon. Another attempting to jump over debris and barely getting a foot off the ground. "They're fighting at a massive disadvantage here." Chen's hands flew across her tablet, pulling up data. "I need to examine a body. Do we have any casualties recovered?" "Paris. The French military brought down one of their transports. 8 alien bodies, mostly intact." The data came through in an encrypted burst 30 minutes later. Chen's eyes widened as she read the preliminary autopsy reports. My God. Look at their bone density. It's roughly 40% less than human standard. Their muscle tissue is longer, more elastic, but far weaker per fiber. Their cardiovascular system is massive relative to body size. They need it to pump blood against less pressure. Less pressure? An Air Force general leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means," Chen said slowly, "that these creatures evolved in low gravity, probably 0.3 G, maybe less. Their entire physiology is adapted for an environment where they weigh a fraction of what they do here." Vasquez felt something cold and fierce settle in her chest. "So on Earth, every single one of them is carrying more than 3 times their natural body weight. Every movement takes enormous effort. Their armor, their weapons, their own bodies. Everything is crushing them." Chen pulled up a simulation on the screen. "Imagine strapping a 100-pound weight vest on every soldier we have, then sending them into combat. Now triple that. That's what they're experiencing. The command center went silent. Someone laughed, a short, shocked bark of sound that died quickly. Can they adapt? Vasquez asked. Given time? Not easily. This isn't like humans going to higher altitudes. This is fundamental biology. Their hearts are working 3 times harder than designed. Their bones are under constant stress they never evolved to handle. Look, she pulled up medical scans. This soldier had multiple stress fractures in its legs. This one shows signs of muscle tears. This one's cardiovascular system was in failure when it died. They're breaking down just by being here, Vasquez said. Exactly. I'd estimate their combat effectiveness degrades severely after 4 to 6 hours of surface operations. Their commanders must know this. That's why most of their fleet stays in orbit. A Navy admiral spoke up. But they took 30 cities in one day. If they're this handicapped, how? Numbers and firepower, Vasquez replied. They compensate with overwhelming force, but look at casualty ratios. She pulled up data streaming in from resistance cells worldwide. In straight firefights, we're trading nearly even when we should be losing 10-1. In any engagement lasting more than 2 hours, we start winning. The general leaned back. So we can't beat them in space, we can't penetrate their shields or match their technology, but down here in the mud, on our home ground, we can outlast them, Vasquez finished. This is their first high-gravity world. They've never faced anything like this before. Over the next week, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Gentari advances slowed to a crawl. Their 30-city foothold remained mostly static. When they pushed outward, human forces fell back, forcing the aliens to advance on foot, to hold ground, to maintain operations in the crushing weight of Earth's gravity. Reports flooded in from around the world. In Seoul, a Gentari patrol collapsed after a 6-hour pursuit through the city. Only 3 of 12 soldiers could still walk. In Cairo, resistance fighters noticed aliens taking longer rest breaks, sitting whenever possible, moving with visible strain. A captured alien soldier, interrogated by Chinese intelligence, revealed more. Through painful translation, their language was difficult, full of sounds humans couldn't quite replicate. A picture emerged. The Gentari Empire had conquered 12 worlds, all moons or low-gravity planets, all with primitive or no indigenous intelligent life. Earth was supposed to be easy. Another soft target, rich in resources, populated by beings who'd barely left their own orbit. They didn't scout us properly, Chen said, reading the translated interrogation notes. They saw our technology level, measured our weapons, and assumed that was enough. They never considered environmental factors. Why would they? Vasquez replied. When you've conquered 12 worlds without breaking a sweat, you get confident, arrogant. The alien prisoner had also revealed something else. The Gentari fleet commander was under immense pressure from the Empire. This was supposed to be a quick victory. Instead, it had become a quagmire. Supply ships brought medical equipment and replacement soldiers, but losses were mounting, not from human weapons, from simple mechanical failure of bodies never meant to operate under such strain. Vasquez called a meeting of every resistance leader they could contact. The holographic conference room filled with tired, determined faces from 6 continents. We can't win in space, she told them. But we don't need to. We just need to survive down here, make them fight on our terms, draw out every engagement, force them to stand and hold ground. Let Earth itself do half our work. How long can we last? Someone asked. As long as we need to, Vasquez replied. The question isn't how long we can last, it's how long they can. On the surface, in the occupied cities, Gentari soldiers stood guard with weapons that could level buildings. But their legs trembled with the effort. Their breath came harder, and with each passing day, Earth's relentless pull dragged them down a little further. 3 weeks into the invasion, Elena Vasquez led a strike team through the ruins of Atlanta. The city burned in patches, smoke rising into a sky still dark with alien ships. Her squad of 12 moved through collapsed buildings and abandoned streets, heading toward a downed Gentari supply vessel on the outskirts. The ship had crashed 2 days ago, its anti-gravity systems failing during descent. 40 aliens had survived the crash. 28 were already dead, not from human attacks, but from injuries sustained in the fall. At 1G, even a survivable crash became deadly. "Contact! 200 meters!" her point man whispered into the radio. Vasquez raised her fist, and the squad froze. Through her scope, she saw 3 Gentari soldiers guarding the ship's entrance. They stood in a tight cluster, leaning against each other for support. One sat on a piece of debris, its weapon resting across its lap. They'd been on duty for hours. It showed. "Wait for it," Vasquez breathed. They waited 30 minutes. One of the guards sat down, then another. The third tried to stay standing but kept shifting its weight from foot to foot, clearly in pain. Standard guard duty, routine on any low-gravity world they'd conquered. Here, it was torture. "Go." Her team moved like water through the rubble. They covered 200 meters in 4 minutes of careful, silent advance. When they opened fire, 2 guards went down before they could raise their weapons. The third managed to shoot back, its energy bolt turning a concrete wall into molten slag, but the return fire caught it in the chest. The armor held, but the impact knocked the alien flat. It tried to rise, failed, tried again. Vasquez put 3 rounds through its helmet. Inside the ship, they found exactly what she'd hoped for. Medical bays lined both walls, filled with injured Gentari. Most couldn't stand. Their thin bodies lay on examination tables designed for lower gravity, struggling against restraints that kept them from sliding off in Earth's pull. "Jesus," someone muttered. "What happened to them?" Dr. Chen, who'd insisted on joining the mission, moved through the bay with clinical efficiency. "Compound fractures, muscle tears. This one has complete cardiovascular collapse. This one's lungs are filling with fluid. Pulmonary edema from the strain." She photographed everything with a hardened tablet. "This is a field hospital, but look at the equipment. It's all designed for low-gravity medical procedures. They can barely treat their own wounded here." They found data modules and dragged them back to base. What Chen's team translated over the next week painted a picture of an invasion falling apart from the inside. Medical reports showed injury rates climbing exponentially. Simple training exercises on Earth's surface resulted in broken bones. Soldiers who'd served more than 3 weeks planetside showed signs of organ stress. The Gentari had stimulant drugs that helped, but they came with severe side effects and diminishing returns. Supply manifests revealed desperate measures. The fleet was shipping down lighter armor, less equipment, fewer weapons per soldier. They were trying to reduce the load their troops carried, but it barely helped. The problem wasn't the gear, it was the soldiers themselves. Most damning were the command communications. Fleet Admiral Kethral, leader of the invasion force, was facing a crisis. The Empire expected Earth to fall within a month. Instead, the ground offensive had stalled. Casualty rates were 300% higher than projected. Morale was collapsing. Soldiers were refusing deployment orders, claiming the planet was hostile to life itself. "They think Earth is a death world," Chen said, reading the translations with something like wonder. "They're calling it the crushing world in their reports." Human resistance adapted to this knowledge. Across the globe, tactics shifted from desperate defense to calculated harassment. In Moscow, resistance fighters destroyed a Gentari checkpoint simply by keeping them engaged for 14 hours straight. When human reinforcements arrived, they found the aliens too exhausted to fight back. Most surrendered. 3 died from what the autopsy called extreme physical stress. In Tokyo, defenders turned the subway system into a killing ground. The Gentari had to climb hundreds of stairs to reach underground positions. By the time they arrived, They were so exhausted that even civilians with hunting rifles could hold them off. In the Australian outback, special forces led alien patrols on chases through rough terrain. The humans, bred and trained in Earth's gravity, could run for hours. The aliens lasted minutes before their bodies gave out. "We're not beating them with technology," Vasquez explained at a strategy session. "We're beating them with endurance. Every engagement is a marathon they can't win." But the Gentari weren't stupid. They adapted too. Heavy mechanized units began appearing, tanks and walkers that didn't rely on biological soldiers. Orbital bombardment increased, targeting human strongholds from space where gravity couldn't protect them. The city of Mumbai disappeared under a bombardment that lasted 6 hours. 12 million people died. The Gentari broadcast it worldwide, a message about the price of resistance. Yet even this came with a cost. The bombardment destroyed the city, but it also eliminated any possibility of occupation. The Gentari needed Earth's resources, its infrastructure, its population as labor. Destroying everything they came to take was an admission of failure, not strength. On the ground, something else was happening. Gentari soldiers were deserting. Not many, just ones and twos at first. They'd slip away from patrols, hide in bombed-out buildings, and wait for human forces to find them. Some died fighting, unable to overcome their training. Others surrendered, begging for mercy in broken attempts at human languages. One defector, brought to the Colorado Command Center, told them everything. Its name translated roughly as Witness of Tides. It had been a logistics officer, calculating supply needs and deployment schedules. "We have conquered many worlds," it said, through a translation device Chen had built from captured technology. "But never one like this, never one that fights back this way. Your weapons are primitive, but you do not break. You do not tire. You move through this crushing weight like it is nothing." "It's not nothing," Vasquez said. "We've adapted to it, evolved in it. It made us what we are." The alien's large eyes fixed on her. "The Empire does not understand this. They believe more ships, more soldiers will solve the problem. They are wrong. This world is poison to us. Every day here kills us a little more." "How long before they withdraw?" someone asked. The alien's response was immediate. "They will not withdraw. Withdrawal is failure. Failure is death for the commanders. They will destroy this planet before admitting defeat." Vasquez felt cold settle in her stomach. "Then we need to make defeat impossible to deny. We need to break them so badly that withdrawal is the only option." She looked around the room at tired, determined faces. Outside, the war continued. Cities burned, people died. The skies stayed dark with alien ships, but on the ground, in the mud and ruins, humans were winning. Step by exhausting step, mile by painful mile. Earth's gravity had picked a side. Now they just had to survive long enough for the aliens to realize it. 6 weeks after the first ships darkened Earth's sky, Fleet Admiral Kethrall faced a choice that would determine the fate of both species. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the endless conquest, staring at casualty reports that made his 3 hearts beat irregularly. 8,000 soldiers dead, 23,000 injured severely enough to require evacuation, 15,000 more showing signs of what the medical staff called gravity degradation syndrome. The ground offensive had captured 30 cities and held them at enormous cost. Meanwhile, humans controlled everything else, and they were pressing inward. "Admiral," his second-in-command said quietly, "the Empire is sending an inspector fleet. They arrive in 4 days." Kethrall's elongated fingers tightened on the railing. An inspector fleet meant the Empire questioned his competence. His entire career, his clan's honor, his very life depended on showing results. But what results could he show? A stalled invasion of a world that should have fallen in days? "Order all forces to advance," he said. "Simultaneously, every city. We take this planet now." On the ground, Elena Vasquez watched the coordinated Gentari advance begin. Every occupied city erupted with activity as alien forces pushed outward in all directions. It was massive, desperate, and exactly what she'd been hoping for. "All units fall back fighting," she ordered. "Make them chase us. Make them work for every inch." The battle for Earth entered its final phase. In New York, Gentari soldiers pushed through Manhattan, advancing block by block. Human forces retreated, but slowly, forcing constant engagement. Every intersection became a firefight, every building a fortress to be cleared. The aliens had superior firepower, but after 4 hours of continuous combat, their advance slowed to a crawl. By hour 6, Gentari soldiers were sitting down between firefights. By hour 8, some couldn't stand back up. The same scene repeated globally. In Shanghai, alien forces tried to push beyond the city center, but got bogged down in the dense urban sprawl. In London, they advanced 3 miles in 12 hours, barely faster than walking pace. In Mexico City, an entire battalion of Gentari troops suffered mass casualties when a building they'd occupied collapsed. Not from human explosives. The alien commander had crowded too many soldiers into a structure not designed for their weight, even diminished as it was by their powered armor. Dr. Chen watched the real-time data flowing into the command center. "They're breaking," she said with certainty. "Look at these casualty figures. 80% are non-combat injuries, stress fractures, cardiac events, respiratory failure. They're literally falling apart." The turning point came in Berlin. A Gentari mechanized column, supported by 200 soldiers, pushed toward a human stronghold in the city's outskirts. The attack started at dawn. By noon, the column had advanced 2 kilometers and was running into prepared defenses. German resistance fighters, reinforced by Polish and Czech volunteers, let the aliens push into a kill zone. Then they sealed it from behind and held. The Gentari found themselves in a 12-hour siege. Their mechanized units had fuel and ammunition, but the biological soldiers supporting them didn't have the endurance. When human forces counterattacked at midnight, they found most of the Gentari troops unconscious. Their bodies had simply given out. The mechanized units fought on, but without infantry support, they were vulnerable. Anti-tank weapons took them down one by one. The battle ended with minimal human casualties. 73 Gentari soldiers surrendered, 42 were dead from combat, 86 were dead from gravity-related causes. News of Berlin spread through both militaries like wildfire. For humans, it was proof they could win major engagements. For the Gentari, it was confirmation of their worst fears. Earth wasn't just difficult, it was killing them faster than the enemy was. Aboard the Endless Conquest, Kethral received reports of mass desertions. Whole platoons were refusing deployment orders. Medical facilities were overwhelmed. Supply ships couldn't bring down enough medication to treat the epidemic of gravity sickness spreading through the ground forces. "We need to withdraw the ground forces," his second-in-command urged. "Maintain orbital superiority, conduct the occupation from space." "And accomplish what?" Kethral snapped. "Bomb them into submission? We came to conquer, not to destroy. The Empire needs this world's resources intact, its population alive to work them. A dead planet is worthless." "Then what do you propose?" Kethral looked at the display showing Earth below, a beautiful blue marble that had become his nightmare. "Deploy the heavy kinetic weapons. Target their command centers, their population hubs, their resistance strongholds. If we cannot occupy this world, we will break their will to resist." The orbital bombardment began the next day. Kinetic weapons, massive slugs of dense metal accelerated to orbital velocity, began raining down on Earth. The devastation was absolute. Everything they hit simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the impact energy. Chicago disappeared in a flash of light and a mushroom cloud. São Paulo followed, then Jakarta, then Cairo. The Gentari systematically targeted every major city not currently occupied by their forces. Vasquez watched her world die from the safety of the Colorado bunker. Billions of lives ended in hours. Continents burned. But even through her grief and rage, she saw the tactical truth. The Gentari had lost. They were destroying what they came to take because they couldn't take it. This wasn't the action of a victorious army. It was genocide, born of failure. "They're going to kill us all," someone said numbly, watching another city die on screen. "No," Vasquez said quietly. "They're going to kill millions. But they can't kill everyone. They don't have time. Look at their fleet positions." Chen pulled up the orbital tracking data. "They're spreading out, maintaining distance from each other. That's not an attack formation. It's a preparation for retreat," Vasquez said. "They're positioning for a clean exit. The bombardment is revenge, not strategy. They're trying to hurt us before they leave." The bombardment continued for 3 days. When it finally stopped, a quarter of humanity lay dead. Every major city was gone. Infrastructure was shattered. But the species survived, scattered through rural areas, small towns, mountain bunkers, and underground facilities. And on the 4th day, the Gentari fleet began to withdraw. Not all at once, they left a token force in orbit, but the vast majority of ships activated their faster-than-light drives and disappeared into the stars. In their occupied cities, the remaining ground forces watched the sky empty. Some tried to hold their positions. Others surrendered immediately. A few fought to the last soldier, going down under waves of human infantry who moved through Earth's gravity as easily as breathing. The battle for New York ended with 300 aliens trapped in Central Park. They were out of ammunition, out of supplies, and out of strength. When Vasquez arrived to accept their surrender, she found most of them lying on the ground, unable to stand. "You should have scouted us better," she said to the ranking officer, speaking through the translation device. "You should have known what you were getting into." The alien looked up at her with large, exhausted eyes. "We have conquered 12 worlds," it said. "We thought we knew everything. We were wrong." "Yes," Vasquez replied. "You were." The war wasn't over. Pockets of Gentari forces held out across the globe. The orbital fleet remained a threat. The scars of invasion, the billions dead, the cities destroyed, would never fully heal. But Earth had done the impossible. They had stopped an interstellar empire. They had won their first war among the stars. And they had done it with humanity's oldest ally, the relentless, invisible, unyielding pull of gravity itself. 2 months after the main Gentari fleet withdrew, Elena Vasquez stood in what used to be Central Park. The city around it was ruins. Manhattan had burned during the final battles, but the park itself remained green. Life persisted even here. She'd been promoted to general, though it felt hollow. General of what? An army that had lost half its soldiers? A world that had lost a quarter of its people? The victory was real, but the cost made her hands shake when she thought about it too long. "General," an aide approached. "The prisoners are ready for transport." Over 4,000 Gentari soldiers had surrendered or been captured during the final month of fighting. Most were in medical facilities, their bodies breaking down despite human doctors' best efforts to keep them alive. Some had been on Earth's surface for 8 weeks. Their physiology was failing in ways both species barely understood. But they were also a resource, a library of alien knowledge captured in living form. Dr. Chen had spent the past month interviewing every prisoner willing to talk. What emerged was a picture of an empire built on fragility. The Gentari had evolved on a moon with barely any gravity. When they developed space travel, they naturally spread to similar low-gravity environments. 12 worlds, 12 easy conquests. Species that had never left their planets couldn't understand the threat until the ships were overhead. Earth was supposed to be number 13. Instead, it became the lesson that broke the Empire's expansion. They're afraid of us now, Chen told Vasquez, reviewing her interview notes. Word is spreading through the galaxy. The species from the crushing world. The death world inhabitants who fight in gravity that would kill most intelligent life. We're not that special, Vasquez said. We're just adapted to our environment. That's what makes it terrifying to them. This is normal for us. Chen pulled up a video file. Watch this. The footage showed a human soldier jogging through rubble while carrying a wounded comrade and 60 pounds of equipment. The Gentari prisoners who'd witnessed it stared, and what their body language suggested was horror. To them, it was superhuman. To the soldier, it was basic training. The implications rippled outward. Earth's defensive satellites, hastily rebuilt with a mixture of human engineering and captured alien technology, detected multiple alien vessels entering the solar system over the following weeks. But these weren't invasion forces. They were diplomatic missions. The first came from a species called the Nixtal. Their world had been conquered by the Gentari 15 years ago. When word reached them that Earth had repelled the Empire, they sent a delegation immediately. The Nixtal looked like aquatic creatures, translucent skin, multiple limbs, large dark eyes. They could barely move in Earth's gravity, requiring specialized suits just to survive. But they came anyway, desperate. Teach us, their ambassador said through translation devices. Teach us how you fought them, how you won. Vasquez looked at the fragile being before her. We didn't win because we're better warriors. We won because our planet is more hostile than theirs expected. That's not something we can teach. Then help us fight. Join us. The Gentari Empire has held our world for 15 years. If Earth, a single planet, can defeat them, imagine what we could do together. More delegations followed. The Krell, whose low-gravity moon colony had fallen to the Gentari. The Sarenth, who'd watched their world burn rather than submit. The Vryn, who'd been fighting a guerrilla resistance for a decade. All came to Earth, drawn by the impossible victory. A coalition formed, not by design, but by necessity. Earth had the warriors. The other species had the knowledge, the technology, the understanding of the broader galaxy that humans lacked. Together, they began to plan not just defense, but liberation. The Gentari Empire watched all this with growing alarm. Their own intelligence networks reported mutinies spreading through occupied worlds. Resistance movements were growing bolder, inspired by Earth's example. The Empire's reputation, built on overwhelming victories, had shattered against a single high-gravity planet. Meanwhile, in classified facilities across Earth, engineers worked to marry alien technology with human needs. The first faster-than-light ship of human construction, the Defiance, launched 6 months after the invasion ended. It was small, ugly, built from salvaged Gentari parts and human stubbornness. But it could travel between stars. More followed. Humanity, so recently on the brink of extinction, began reaching outward with deliberate purpose. Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the Defiance during its shakedown cruise. Through the viewport, Earth hung in space, scarred, wounded, but alive. Beside her, Dr. Chen reviewed specifications for the next generation of ships. The Nixtal want us to help liberate their homeworld, Chen said. They're offering their entire fleet in support. How many ships? 300. Not much by Gentari standards, but it's a start. Vasquez thought about it. Months ago, she'd been planning the defense of a dying world. Now they were discussing interstellar military operations. The shift felt surreal. What are we becoming? She asked quietly. Liberators? Conquerors? What's the difference? The difference, Chen said, is who decides. The Nixtal asked for help. We're not forcing our presence on anyone. We're just strong enough to help now. Strong in a way most species aren't. Below them, in the ship's gymnasium, human soldiers trained. They wore weighted vests. not to build strength, but to maintain it for the lower gravity environments they'd soon fight in. They ran, climbed, sparred, all of it in Earth's crushing 1G that had become their greatest weapon. The training wasn't just physical. Tactical schools taught officers how to use gravity as a strategic asset. Engineers designed equipment that worked in variable gravity fields. Medics learned to treat injuries in low-G environments where human strength could be dangerous. Earth was preparing for war among the stars, not by choice, but by necessity. The Gentari Empire wasn't going to forgive Earth's resistance. Intelligence suggested they were building a second invasion fleet, this time with specialized equipment for high-gravity operations. They'd learned their lesson. The next invasion would be different. But humanity had learned too. They'd learned they weren't alone in the galaxy. They'd learned that other species could be allies. And most importantly, they'd learned that they were dangerous in ways they'd never understood before. "General," the captain's voice came over the intercom, "we're being hailed by a Gentari diplomatic vessel. They're requesting permission to approach." Vasquez and Chen exchanged glances. "Diplomatic vessel?" "Yes, ma'am. They're broadcasting peaceful intent, requesting a meeting." In the conference room an hour later, Vasquez faced a Gentari delegation. Not soldiers this time. These wore different uniforms, carried no weapons. The lead diplomat looked old, its skin more creased than the soldiers she'd fought. "General Vasquez," it said through the translator, "I come with a message from the Empire. A proposal. Speak." The war between our species was unfortunate. Based on misunderstandings, the Empire recognizes that Earth is not suitable for occupation. We propose a peace treaty. We leave your world alone. You do not interfere with our operations elsewhere. A simple cessation of hostilities. Vasquez let the silence stretch. Then she leaned forward. "Let me make something very clear. Earth doesn't want your empire anywhere near us. We don't trust you, we don't forgive you, and we don't forget the billions you killed. But we're willing to discuss terms. Here they are. Release every world you've conquered. Dismantle your military fleet. Submit to monitoring by an independent coalition." The diplomat's large eyes widened. "That is not acceptable. The Empire will never—" "Then we have nothing to discuss. Humanity is going to the stars. We're going to help every species you've conquered, and if you try to stop us, you'll face soldiers who think Earth's gravity is normal. Imagine what we can do to your troops in 0.3G. The meeting ended without agreement. The Gentari withdrew. But the message was sent, and it spread through the galaxy faster than light. Earth would not be conquered. Earth would not sit idle. Earth was coming, and the crushing world's inhabitants were bringing gravity's fury with them. In the training centers and shipyards, in the tactical academies and diplomatic corps, humanity prepared for its first steps as an interstellar species. They mourned their dead, rebuilt their cities, and trained for battles they'd once thought impossible. The invasion had begun with alien ships darkening Earth's sky. It had ended with those ships fleeing into space, driven off by an enemy that couldn't be defeated with technology alone. Gravity itself had delivered the final blow. Now humanity would carry that weapon to the stars, not as conquerors, but as liberators, as warriors forged in the crucible of Earth's relentless pull, as proof that sometimes the strongest species isn't the most advanced. It's the one that learned to thrive in the harshest home. The sky above Earth filled with stars again. And this time, humanity knew they weren't alone out there. They were just the strongest.